Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's story is about something Padre Pio witnessed that changed the way he understood God's mercy. We're talking about the moment a penitent sinner is welcomed into heaven. If you've been following these stories, you know that Padre Pio saw things most people never see. Souls departing, angels moving through the world, grace working invisibly in the hearts of the dying. But among all the mysteries he witnessed, few moved him as deeply as watching heaven respond to a sinner who had turned back at the last possible moment. Padre Pio once said, "Heaven rejoices more over one repentant sinner than over 99 who never strayed." But the joy is not quiet. It is like a father who thought his son was dead and suddenly sees him walking home. He described these moments with tears in his eyes, not from sorrow, but from wonder at the speed and fullness of God's forgiveness. Throughout his life, Padre Pio had a gift that most people would find impossible to believe. But the friars who lived with him saw it happen every day. He could sense the exact moment when someone died, anywhere in the world. They would watch him stop mid-conversation, his face suddenly changing. His eyes would fill with tears or go very still, as if he were looking through the walls into another realm. Sometimes he would whisper a prayer. Other times he would simply stand there, silent, waiting. According to the friars who witnessed these moments, Padre Pio was seeing the soul itself at the instant it left the body. He described it like watching a spark rise from a flame, moving upward or hesitating depending on where it was going. He could tell immediately whether the soul was bound for heaven, detained in purgatory, or falling into darkness. He never spoke lightly about what he saw. It was simply part of his daily reality, as ordinary to him as breathing. This happened constantly, not once or twice a year, but dozens, sometimes hundreds of times. The friars grew accustomed to his sudden pauses, his quiet tears, his moments of stillness that meant someone, somewhere, had just crossed from time into eternity. Padre Pio treated these visions as fact, not mystery, but among all the souls he witnessed departing, the ones that brought him the deepest tears of joy were always the same, souls who had turned back at the last possible moment. One evening, during confession, Padre Pio was listening to a penitent when his expression suddenly changed. The person kneeling before him noticed it immediately. His face softened, his eyes filled with tears, and a gentle smile appeared, something the friars rarely saw while he was hearing confessions. He looked past the penitent, over their shoulder, as if watching something no one else could see. After the confession ended, the friar who had been waiting nearby approached him carefully. "Father, what happened? What did you see?" Padre Pio took a breath and whispered, "A soul just entered heaven." The friar asked whose soul it was. Padre Pio explained that it was a man he had never met, someone who had lived far from God for more than 40 years. The man had been in a hospital bed, dying, when he suddenly asked for a priest. He confessed his sins with genuine sorrow, received absolution, and died moments later. Padre Pio said he saw the exact instant the soul departed. It moved quickly, he said, like someone who had been lost in darkness and suddenly saw light. There was no hesitation, no delay, no judgment that held him back. It was like watching a child run into the arms of a father, Padre Pio said. Heaven did not count the years, it only saw the heart. Afterward, the friars asked how heaven could respond so quickly to someone who had lived in sin for so long. Padre Pio's answer became one of his most repeated teachings. Padre Pio explained it this way. He said repentance is like a door opening. No matter how long that door has been closed, the moment it swings open, light floods in instantly. The darkness doesn't argue. It simply disappears. He told his spiritual children that God does not measure time the way we do. To us, 40 years feels like a lifetime. To God, it is one moment compared to eternity. What matters is not how long someone was lost, but the sincerity of their return. The sorrow of one moment, Padre Pio said, erases the sin of a lifetime if it is sincere. He insisted that heaven does not calculate what people deserve. It responds to the condition of the heart. A sinner who turns back with genuine sorrow, even at the final breath, is not judged by the weight of their past. They are welcomed because they finally said yes. Padre Pio believed that penitent sinners are among the most beloved in heaven because they understand mercy in a way others never will. They know what it means to be lost and then found. They know the cost of pride and the relief of surrender. He told them constantly, even one tear of true sorrow is enough, even one whispered prayer of regret. God does not wait for perfection, he waits for honesty. There was a story that proved this teaching in a way the friars would never forget. A family came to Padre Pio in desperation. Their father was dying in a hospital several towns away, and he had refused to see a priest. For more than 30 years, the man had lived with bitterness in his heart. He would not pray, would not reconcile, would not even allow the name of God to be spoken in his presence. His wife and children begged Padre Pio for help. They wept as they told him their father was slipping away, and they feared for his soul. Padre Pio listened quietly, then promised he would pray. He asked them to trust and to wait. Hours passed. The family sat in silence, helpless, knowing their father could die at any moment. Then, late in the evening, they received word from the hospital. Something had changed. The dying man had suddenly asked for a priest. When the priest arrived, the man wept. He confessed his sins with deep sorrow, received absolution, and was given the last rites. Minutes later, he died peacefully. The family could not understand what had happened. When they returned to Padre Pio, he smiled gently and said, "I asked Our Lady to visit him. She did." He explained that at the last breath, grace becomes a flood. All that is needed is one moment of yes. Padre Pio believed that at the moment of repentance, something happens in heaven that most people never imagine. Padre Pio described what happens in heaven at the instant of repentance, and his description was not theoretical. He said he had seen it. Jesus does not wait passively for sinners to return. The moment a soul turns back, Jesus runs toward them. He often referenced the parable of the prodigal son, but Padre Pio insisted he had witnessed this literally. He said Jesus stands watching, waiting, and the moment he sees the sinner turning around, he moves first. The angels rejoice, but Jesus himself is already running. Like a father who has been watching the road for years, Padre Pio said, the moment he sees the sinner turn, he runs. He taught his spiritual children that Jesus does not measure the distance of sin. He measures the direction of the heart. It does not matter if someone has been lost for days or decades. What matters is the turn, the decision to come back. Padre Pio insisted that the greater the sin, the greater the mercy displayed. Heaven does not treat repentance as an obligation to be met. It treats it as a reunion to be celebrated. He said that, at the very instant of sincere repentance, the soul is transformed. It becomes white, clean, new. The past is erased, not minimized or excused, but completely removed. The soul stands before God as if it had never fallen. Padre Pio described it like a thread. Jesus holds one end, the repentant soul grasps the other, and nothing can break it. But Padre Pio also witnessed something even more surprising. How heaven responds to sinners no one else believed could be saved. There was a man known throughout the region as someone beyond saving. He had lived violently, cursed God openly, and mocked anyone who spoke of faith. People avoided him. The church had tried to reach him for years, but he refused every effort. He lived in anger and died suddenly in an accident that no one expected. Everyone assumed his soul was lost. Padre Pio had prayed for the man from a distance, though they had never met. On the day the man died, Padre Pio was celebrating Mass when his expression suddenly changed. A gentle smile appeared on his face, something the friars noticed immediately. After Mass, one of them approached him and asked, "Father, what happened?" Padre Pio answered quietly, "He made it. In the final second, he called for mercy." The friar was stunned. He asked how that was possible. Padre Pio described what he had seen. The man's soul, terrified and aware of everything he had done, cried out in desperation. It was not a prayer he had rehearsed. It was not eloquent or calm. It was a scream for help, and heaven opened instantly. Padre Pio said the soul moved upward like something pulled by light. There was no hesitation, no delay, no weighing of his crimes. "Heaven does not hold grudges," Padre Pio said. "The moment a soul says, 'Forgive me,' it is done." His certainty shocked even the friars who knew him best. Padre Pio later told his spiritual children what heaven looks like at the moment a penitent sinner arrives. One afternoon, a spiritual daughter asked Padre Pio directly, "Father, what does heaven do when a sinner repents?" He paused, then described what he had seen. He said the angels gather first. Heaven seems to pause, as if holding its breath, and then it erupts in joy. The light grows brighter. There is a sound, he said, though it is hard to describe. Sometimes it feels like singing. Other times it is a silence so profound it carries more weight than any music. Mary is always present. Padre Pio said she is often the first to embrace the arriving soul, welcoming them home before they even understand where they are. The angels celebrate every soul, Padre Pio explained. But for the penitent sinner, the joy is different. It is the joy of something lost, now found. He quoted the words of Jesus, that heaven rejoices more over one repentant sinner than over 99 who never strayed. Padre Pio insisted this was not metaphor. He had witnessed it. The celebration in heaven over a returning sinner is greater, louder, brighter than for those who remained faithful their entire lives. He described it as a homecoming. The soul is received as if they had always belonged, as if their absence had never happened. There is no mention of their past sins. They are adopted instantly as a child of God. In his final years, Padre Pio returned to this truth again and again, as if he wanted to make absolutely sure his spiritual children understood. Toward the end of his life, Padre Pio grew weaker, but he continued hearing confessions until his body could no longer carry him. Even then, he would sit in his cell and speak to those who came, offering the same message he had given for decades. His last teaching was also his simplest. He repeated it often, almost as if he wanted to make certain no one misunderstood. It is never too late. Turn back, even now. He told penitents that God's mercy is not a door that closes. It is a heart that never stops waiting. Even in his final illness, he assured people that one moment of sincere sorrow was enough, that heaven was ready to forgive instantly. The friars who cared for him noticed that in his final months he spoke more about mercy than judgment. He seemed less concerned with warning people and more focused on comforting them. His message became quieter, gentler, but no less certain. When Padre Pio himself was dying, he was peaceful. He trusted the same mercy he had witnessed his entire life. He had seen it work for sinners who seemed beyond hope. He had watched heaven run toward souls who turned back at the last possible moment. There was no fear in his eyes, only gratitude for God's patience and certainty that the welcome he had described so many times was now waiting for him.